So this is my chapter 16 discussion. Chapter 16 pretty much covered things like the inequality and injustice of African Americans during the early 1900s. Question 1. What were some similarities between the Red Summer in 1919 and the summer of 2020? Well, some similarities were that African Americans were still fighting, rioting, and protesting to achieve equality, just as they did in 1920s. Question 2. What wars were African Americans fighting abroad during the 1920s and back home? How did the treatment of African American soldiers contribute to the racial tension in the United States? African Americans in the 1920s were fighting in World War I, but they were also fighting back home for their civil rights. Like for example, some of the African Americans came home and had nothing to wear, so they would keep on the army uniform, and this gave them a little bit of respect for like everybody else because they actually served in the army, which was very honorable back then. Question 3. What specific groups and individuals were key in forming alliances, organizing events that would catapult the justice system and acknowledge the heinous crimes committed against the African Americans in both 1919 and 2020? And how did these groups and individuals start the movement towards recognition of inequality and towards justice? In 1919, the NAACP gained recognition by traveling city to city to gain members for rioting. They started in the Capitol, where they protested against lynching and protested against more Black Lives Matter events. In 2020, Black Lives Matter was the main event or main group pushing for racial tension and racial inequality to be diminished. Question 4. Compare and contrast the Black Lives Matters movement and the NAACP, formerly known as the Nigeria Movement, in efforts to support and bring about social and racial justice. In what ways are these groups similar and what ways are they different? The NAACP and Black Lives Matter were both groups that were pushing to end racism, equality, and injustice for all African Americans. But a big difference was the Black Lives Matter were mainly about police brutality, while the NAACP helped with more like the court system and law that helped against like federal and government. Question 5. Has there ever been an improvement in the treatment of African Americans as it relates to the access to public goods, services, and equal treatment? Yes, I think that there was like some improvement. Like we're not segregated no more, but we still have like a long ways to go as for us to be like truly equal. Like today we're still brutally beaten and stuff like by the police just for our skin color, just as they did back then. So that's one thing that didn't change.